some knowledge about factoring, and now this was a complete review of everything. Oh, actually not. So let me give you examples of polynomials finally, but it's the same. It's factoring by grouping. Polynomials. Factoring polynomials. Okay, so let's say I'm going to choose C. 2x cubed minus 6x squared plus x minus 3. So I go through the whole strategy again. It's in descending order, yes. It is in descending order. Then a greatest common factor, no. 2, 6, 1, and negative 3 don't have a common factor. Negative leading coefficient, no. Is it a binomial? No. Is it a trinomial? No. It has 4 terms. So factoring by grouping. So I just go ahead. That's it. So factoring polynomials is easier than anything else. So from the first two, what will you factor out?
2x squared.
Of course. Excellent. And what is left in parentheses? Very good. X minus?
3.
Very good. What do I have to copy again?
X minus 3.
Of course, before I look. Because if I get confused and I don't get the same thing, I'll get stuck and I'll never get to my answer. Sign and factor. If I don't put a sign, I mess up the problem.
Plus.
And
1.
that's it. Common factor out.
X minus 3.
Very good. And what is left over? Something has to be left over from the first term and something has to be left over from the second term.
2x squared plus 1.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, so now you can ask, okay, you reviewed factoring in an hour for us. Great job. Wonderful. Well done, Monica, but what do I do with it? So here's what we do with it. We use the principle of zero product to solve equations by factoring. Okay, so let's talk about the principle of zero product first, or the so-called zero product principle. What does it mean? So it means that if we have a product of any factors, a factor, another factor, as many as you want, set equal to 0. So there is no addition or subtraction. This is one factor, a second factor, a third factor. Then there are 3 possibilities because there are 3 factors. 1, 2, 3 factors. Either the first one to be 0, or the second one to be 0, or the third one to be 0. And this is the principle. After we factor completely, if this is equal to 0, then I have x minus 3 equals 0, or 2x plus 1 equals to 0. So let's start with this very first one. Very simple example. X minus 2 and 7 minus 4x equals 0. So I'm using the zero product principle. How do I use it? By simply saying, okay, I do have 2 factors. Factor x minus 2 is like factor A here. And factor 7 minus 4x is like factor B. What do I have to do? I have to set this factor equal to 0, and I have to set this factor equal to 0. And solve for x, and I'm done. So either x minus 2, but remember, it's a product, and I have to have 0 here. So the zero product principle means 0 on one side, and the product of as many factors as you want, it doesn't matter, but a product of factors. That's why we learn factoring. So if the first factor, my so-called A, is 0, then from here I move 2 and I get x equals 2, and I found the first solution. Now what if my factor B is 0? Then I have to create an equation with 7 minus 4x equals 0. Here I have to move 7 to the other side and divide by -4. So some of my equipment here is in the way. Oops, I did something, right? Yeah, I did something. What did I do now? Okay, I'm back, I think. Okay, so I hope you can still see. Sorry about that. I just moved my equipment. I cut off my video. Okay, so negative 4x equals negative 7 because I moved 7, which was positive, from one side to the other. That's all it had. That's all that happens here. So when I move a term from one side to the other, it only changes its sign. Or you can say negative 7, same thing. And now I divide by negative 4, and I get x equals 7 over 4. And this is my second solution. You can box in the solution like that, or you can write a solution set, braces, in order. 7 over 4 is smaller in the ascending order, and 2 is bigger. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this. It's up to you. Another example. Let's say b, which is x squared equals 100. I cannot use the zero product principle yet because it's not a product and I don't have 0 on one side. But I know that I move 100 and I have to have 0 because when I move the only term that I have, if I move it to the other side, I have to have 0. And now I go through my strategy. Descending order, yes. Greatest common factor, no. Negative leading coefficient, no. Binomial, yes. Which of these 4? Well, this is plus and this is plus, but I have minus. So I can only look at the difference of squares or difference of cubes. Obviously, it's the difference of squares. I will factor it immediately and then create the 2 solutions or determine the 2 equations that will give us the 2 solutions. So how do I factor this? As a difference of squares. Difference of squares. Any suggestions? So remember, we have to determine a number whose squared is 100. And another quantity whose squared is x squared. Is this okay? Everyone in agreement? Yes? Maybe? No? Yes?
Yes.
Good. So now the first factor could be 0. When I move 10, I get x equals negative 10. Or the second factor can be 0. And when I move 10, I get 10. When I move negative 10 to the other side. So you can write a solution like that or a solution set. And I'm writing this for you because my lab math will ask you something like that. So negative 10 comma 10. We also like to write it as plus or minus 10. That's fine too. So this is how we solve quadratic equations by factoring. Okay, so I think that now we have enough information to start working on our class assignment.